What up, guys? We have a new exciting scaling solution launching on Bitcoin in the next month called Fractal. And in this video, I'm going to tell you guys everything you need to know about Fractal, as well as some projects to pay attention to. And without further ado, let's get into it. First things first, guys, if you've been interacting on the Bitcoin chain, you'll know that it is far from perfect as a solution for all these different dApps and projects that are trying to build in the ecosystem. The block times are super long at 10 minutes per block. And whenever there's a lot of congestion, not only do you have high fees, but it can take forever for your transactions to actually go through. And another limitation of Bitcoin Layer 1 right now is that you don't actually have the smart contract capabilities. And because of that, you have a bunch of different layer 2s that are trying to come out and solve this main issue of Bitcoin by improving the scaling while at the same time having some of that security that we all love with the Bitcoin Layer 1. Now, Fractal is a new competitor when it comes to scaling the Bitcoin space, and they are launching next month in September, and they're actually backed and worked on by the Unisat team, which has done a tremendous amount of work in the space already. Now let's get into what exactly Fractal is. According to their main X, Fractal is the only Bitcoin scaling solution that uses Bitcoin core code itself to recursively scale unlimited layers on top of Bitcoin. And if you're like me, when you first read that, you're probably wondering, what the heck is this? But don't worry, guys, I'm about to dive into it deeper. They actually have this incredible article that I'll put in the description, which details the process of this, but I kind of wanted to give you guys the dumbed down version here. As I said earlier in this video, the main issue with building and developing on Bitcoin's layer 1 is that not only do they not have smart contract capabilities, but on top of that, there is just so much congestion that happens on the chain. And you have all these different layer 2s that are coming out that are trying to solve this issue, but a lot of times they're simply handling all these transactions off chain, and it's kind of janky, not really true layer 2s like we actually see over on Ethereum. So what Fractal is doing a little bit differently here is that they're actually using a method called recursive virtualization in order to help scale the layer 1, even though it's a layer 2, but be able to verify and have all the benefits of security that's actually on the Bitcoin layer 1. So kind of the way it works, guys, is think if you have a regular computer, you can actually do a virtualization server where now all of a sudden you can have all these different servers and instances that are using the same hardware, which is the one computer. Essentially, Fractal is doing the same thing, but instead of a hardware like my computer, they are using the same code that is in Bitcoin, which is the Bitcoin core code. And this recursive aspect is just a dynamic way of increasing the amount of servers or instances to be able to handle all of these transactions depending on the demand of the chain and all of the transactions going through. The reason they call it fractal is because fractals look the exact same no matter how much of the scale. So essentially, you're just replicating the layer 1 of Bitcoin over and over and over and over again in order to handle all these transactions. And what's interesting is because it's actually using this same Bitcoin core code, it actually has the same exact consensus mechanism, which is the proof of work. Now, there's a couple benefits of actually replicating this whole entire same consensus model. The first aspect is that you can actually periodically anchor these different transactions to the main Bitcoin layer 1. And by doing this, you can always cross-reference the different transactions that are happening over on Fractal with the main Bitcoin layer 1. So even though all of these transactions are happening on these instances in this layer 2 with Fractal, periodically they're anchoring these transactions so you can cross-reference and have that finality over on the Bitcoin layer 1, which is a pretty huge deal because now you have a lot of that security aspect from the main Bitcoin layer 1 and all of the different decentralized miners that are working on that. What's really cool about this is you can actually have a thing called cadence mining, which allows miners that are mining regular Bitcoin to also mine fractal Bitcoin at the same time, and they call this merged mining. So you'll be able to tap into all of these different miners that are already mining Bitcoin and have them mine this at the same time with very little additional computing cost. And because of this, you can have a much more decentralized network for this actual fractal when it comes to validating the transactions. Now, that being said, there is one worry, especially in the beginning, and they had mentioned this with Fractal, that there might not be enough miners which are supporting the proof of work consensus with Fractal. And if that's the case, and one mining group or one organization has way too much of the computing power, over 51% of majority, they can actually manipulate this whole entire Fractal blockchain. So that's something to be aware of. And they've suggested a few different things that could potentially help, at least in the beginning, as they're onboarding more miners. To go over some of the benefits of what they're trying to do here, a distributed network with multiple of these instances can be established, which outperforms a single virtualized instance in computational efficiency. Through inter-instance communication, effective synchronization can be maintained when necessary. It's also saying that you can have much faster block times. Instead of 10 minutes like we have on the layer 1, now all of a sudden you can have 60 seconds or less. And then there is a universal asset transfer interface so that different transactions and transfers going from layer to layer can happen a lot more quickly. You also have this anchoring that I mentioned before, where you can anchor some of these transactions over to the Bitcoin layer 1, and this gives an additional legitimacy as well as finality to these different transactions that are happening on the layer 2. And then at the same time, they're saying there's a lot of reusability when it comes to this actual virtualization, and you can generate a lot of system snapshots very quickly for a specific instance and selectively load and execute it on designated layers, enabling the reuse of functionality at different levels of detail. And with this, guys, there are a lot of different use cases. You can have an ordinals oriented instance, you can have different autonomous games, unlimited virtual worlds, and a lot of different things that you can't actually do just on the main layer 1 of Bitcoin. And if OPCat gets approved, you're even going to have additional decentralized applications and smart contract capabilities that are then able to scale on all these instances as well. That was a lot of information that I went over there, but kind of how I view this, guys, is yes, it is a layer 2. They're just doing things a little bit differently with this recursive virtualization. I actually really like this idea. And because they can make all these instances, they're hoping that they can really improve transaction times and reduce congestion. And because it's using the same code, you can actually already implement all of these different tools and infrastructure that has already been built for Bitcoin over into this L2 pretty much instantly. So like Unisat wallet, these different marketplaces, the same proof of work consensus, all of the miners that are already out there that are mining Bitcoin. And because of that, I think adoption is going to be a lot easier. And to even go a little bit further, they're going to be incentivizing different projects to build on Fractal by doing a retroactive airdrop of their FB token, their Fractal Bitcoin token, as well as even USDT grants to some of the projects that are developing on the ecosystem. One of the things that you do have to realize with all of these L2s is a lot of them are coming out and not getting a ton of adoption and really struggling to get a lot of projects onboarded. So you do have to realize that that could potentially happen on Fractal as well, even though they have a strong team behind them. So now that you know what Fractal is and a little bit more of how it works, how can you be prepared for this? Well, guys, they are going to have their FB token, their Fractal Bitcoin token. We don't know the full tokenomics of this yet, but this token is going to be rewarded to people that are helping provide consensus to the network, which is all the different proof of work miners out there. So if you're someone that has an ASIC miner and you're already mining Bitcoin, look into their different docs, because you should be able to do merged mining and now be able to earn Fractal Bitcoin on top of the Bitcoin you are already earning without needing any additional computational power. I'll make another video when we learn more about their tokenomics, but the big thing is you're going to be able to earn this token. You're going to have different incentives to platforms out there, and this token is going to be the main way to pay some of these different transaction costs on the Fractal network, as well as potentially be able to secure allocations to different projects that are building in their ecosystem. As far as some projects to pay attention to, you actually have Sats Pump Fund. This is pretty much a copy of Pump Fund, but it's going to be used on the Fractal blockchain, and they're actually going to have the biggest BRC20 airdrop, where if you hold at least $300 of Ordi, Sats, Pizza, SHNT, Wizard, Honk, Rats, or 3 bitmaps, you are going to be able to get an airdrop airdrop allocation. We don't know all the details for this yet, but it did say that you can split all of these tokens up to multiple wallets if you have multiple wallets, and to make sure that you are using the Unisat wallet. And once again, when this actually comes out, stay tuned and subscribe, because I'll make a deeper video of all the different projects that are building on Fractal. Another interesting project to have you on your radar is called Uniworlds. They are building gaming infrastructure for the Bitcoin ecosystem, and they are supported by Unisat wallet. And then the third project that I've been really paying a lot of attention to is actually just Unisat in general, because there are some rumors or speculation that there's going to be a pizza swap or some sort of DEX that is going to be used on Fractal. And I think there might be a lot of potential if you can get into that DEX early and potentially get into some of these different tokens that are launching very early in the ecosystem. Another interesting thing to note is that these are all BRC20 tokens, not runes. I believe because it's the same exact Bitcoin core code that you'll be able to use runes on this, but it seems like a lot of the beginning infrastructure, a lot of the dApps that are building in the beginning are backed by the Unisat team that obviously is incentivized for BRC20 tokens to do well, because a lot of their marketplaces and infrastructure are designed for BRC20. But that's just one thing I wanted y'all to be aware of as well. One of the final notes that I wanted to bring up here is, yes, the mainnet is next month, but you can already do some stuff on their testnet. For example, you can actually inscribe BRC20 tokens on the Fractal testnet, and maybe they'll even do some sort of airdrop with their Fractal Bitcoin to people that are doing these different transactions. And this was posted just yesterday on the 19th, so it's super early and a lot of people probably aren't paying attention to it yet. So maybe do this in a bunch of different wallets, and maybe have a bunch of your different wallets split these assets that I was talking about over here with Sats Pump Fund, and potentially you can get an airdrop of the Fractal Bitcoin and maybe an airdrop of Sats Pump Fund, and maybe even something with the whole entire Pizza Swap project if they do end up releasing that DEX. Outside of that, hope you all enjoyed the video. If you want to stay up to date on what's hot in the Bitcoin ecosystem as well as just the market in general, feel free to subscribe. I'm also the founder of an alpha group project called Jelly Cubes, where we try to stay on top of these different markets. So if you're interested in joining our community, just open up a Discord ticket, ask for a free trial pass, and check us out. That wraps up this video. Hope you all enjoyed it, and I'll catch y'all later.